let's start with today's topic. It's hepatitis. What do you mean by hepatitis? What do you mean by itis? Itis means inflammation. So hepat relates to liver. We are talking about inflammation in the liver, which can be due to any kind of infectious agent, which can be due to toxins, it can be due to alcohol or autoimmune. These are the causes that can lead to hepatic inflammation, okay, hepatitis. But today specifically we'll study about viruses, and these viruses, they are named after hepatitis A virus, hepatitis B virus, hepatitis C virus, D virus and E virus. What do you have to remember about them is the specifications and the course of disease and how can you treat and manage them and the prognosis. Okay. So first thing, which family do these viruses belong to? These are the families. What you can see here, hepatitis A virus belongs to enterovirus 72. It belongs to Picornaviridae family, hepatovirus genus. Okay. Hepatitis B virus, Hepadnaviridae, orthohepadnavirus genus. Okay. C, flavivirus. What are other viruses under flavivirus? Okay, this belongs to flavivirus. HDV. This, you just remember the delta virus genus for this family. Okay. Then unclassified calciviridae, hepavirus, hepatitis E virus. All these viruses are single-stranded RNA virus, except hepatitis B is double-stranded DNA virus. So the only DNA virus amongst these hepatitis viruses is hepatitis B virus. And hepatitis A and hepatitis E, these are not enveloped viruses. Okay, rest all are enveloped viruses. Also, you have to remember what is the route of transmission. So for hepatitis A and E, the route of transmission is fecal-oral. We understand what is fecal-oral? These agents, they are transmitted into the fecal matter. Fecal matter contaminates food and water, and that food water gets through the mouth to the intestine. That is fecal-oral route. Okay. Hepatitis B, hepatitis C and hepatitis D. These have most common route of infection is through parenteral, blood. Okay. Blood transfusion, sexual contact, from mother to fetus, vertical transmission, or even during feeding if the nipples are cracked, okay, or through direct contact on the abraded skin, sometimes using the common razors, okay. All these things will lead to blood transmission of hepatitis B virus. Okay, these are all the route of transmissions. Now, what is the incubation period for all these viruses? You just remember the average incubation period in days. So, how do you remember? For HAV and HEV, you just remember these two together because the route of transmission is similar. It is fecal-oral route of transmission. So, here you remember average 30 days, HEV average 40 days. ठीक है? फिर आ गया बीच में HCV, this is average 50 days. But hepatitis B and hepatitis D always are together. There is no hepatitis D virus infection without hepatitis B virus infection. So whenever you are talking about either B or D, you have to remember the average incubation period is 60 to 90 days. Okay? This much we understood? ठीक है. Now, fulminant disease. What do you mean by fulminant disease? It is becoming suddenly very severe. Okay, acute attack which has become severe. Okay, so all of them can become fulminant, but hepatitis E virus in pregnancy has the more risk. Okay, more risk of fulminancy is there in hepatitis E virus during pregnancy. Okay, any confusion? Now, what do you remember? Other than this, you have to know that there is oncogenicity in hepatitis C and B virus. Okay. that is noted in hepatitis B and C virus. Other than that, extra hepatic manifestations are most commonly noted in hepatitis C virus. For example, glomerulonephritis, arthritis, joint pain, etc. Whenever question is asked that which virus shows extra hepatic manifestations most commonly, you have to say that it is hepatitis C virus. Okay. You know about hepatitis B vaccine, right? Hepatitis B vaccine, immunoglobulin, we know. Out of these viruses, hepatitis A and E can be prevented through vaccination. Okay, hepatitis E virus is not present worldwide, but hepatitis A virus is there. Vaccine for hepatitis A virus is available. Okay. Now coming to what are the clinical manifestations you can think of when there is inflammation in the liver? You can think of jaundice, very good. You can think of fatigue, you can think of abdominal pain, you can think of nausea. Okay, these are the common symptoms for all hepatitis. Nausea, abdominal pain, jaundice, fatigue. Okay? Then, what can you do? In biochemistry, have they taught you about liver enzymes and all? Right? You can test for those, bilirubin, all those things will be elevated. Other than that, in microbiology, how do you do the laboratory diagnosis? By now, you know about antigen and antibody. Where do you think you can find the antigens? You can find these antigens in serum, blood serum and stool samples. Will you find the antibodies in stool sample? No. You will find the antibodies in serum sample. The thing is, how do we interpret them? Okay. So, whenever you see IgM antibodies, clearly we are talking about HAV virus, hepatitis A virus we are talking about. So, when you see IgM antibodies, so what do you say? That IgM appears in the acute phase. And whenever you see IgG antibodies, we are talking about chronic phase. Okay. So, when you see this anti-HAV IgM positive, it means there is an acute infection. And whenever there is anti-HAV, IgG antibody, it means that, and there is absence of IgM, it means that there has been a past infection or this person is in recovery phase. Okay. Because when IgG appear, IgM starts fading. Okay. See the graph here. You can see the IgM has appeared, but it has peaked during aminotransferases. Okay. Then it comes lower in within 3 to 4 months, and then IgG appears and it remains positive. Okay. This graph remains positive. Okay. This is about hepatitis A virus. This is about hepatitis E virus as well. Okay, this much we understood. So, hepatitis A and E are common in route of transmission and antibodies. Okay, coming to hepatitis B virus. You saw that the risk of transmission is way too much in hepatitis B virus. How much is it? About 30%. How much is it for hepatitis C virus? About 3%. And HIV virus? 0.3%. Okay. So, this hepatitis B virus, it actually appears in 3 forms. Morphologically, they appear in 3 forms. What are the 3 forms? Spherical form, tubular form, or this complete form, which is also known as Dane particle by the name of person who discovered it. Okay. So, how will they appear? They will appear like this. Can you see this? This is the spherical form. This tube-like structure, this is tubular form. And this complete particle, this is Dane particle. What kind of microscopy is this? Done for viruses? This is electron microscopy. Okay. Now coming to this virus. In this virus, you have to remember about 3 antigens. What are these 3 antigens? Surface antigens. Surface antigens will be where? On the surface. Okay? Then there is something called as hepatitis E antigen. E denotes infectivity. Okay? Envelope antigen. E denotes infectivity. And then there is something called as hepatitis C antigen, this antigen does not get released in the blood. So these is seen in where hepatocytes, but it is not released in the blood. So what kind of antigens are you able to test in blood serum? Hepatitis B surface antigen, hepatitis B E antigen. Okay, these two antigens you are able to test in the blood serum. Okay, now I told you about two antigens that are there in the serum. This hepatitis C antigen, the core antigen, it is not detectable in the serum, but it can be detected in the hepatocytes by immunofluorescent tests. Okay. For these antigens, will there be antibodies? Yes. What are we naming these antibodies? For surface antigen, we are naming it anti-HBs antibody. For E, we are naming it anti-HBe antibody. But for core antigen, we have two antibodies. Again, what are these antibodies? You know about them, IgM and IgG. We are not seeing this differentiation we are not seeing here. Okay. So, can you see this graph? What did we talk about? HBsAg. This was the first antigen that is to be released in the blood. So, it appears first. Can you see it here? It appears first. Then, what is there? Hepatitis. See, this is antigen. This graph is antigen, right? This is hepatitis S antigen. Yahan se aage, what is there? Whenever this antigen is ending here, you start this another graph coming out. This is anti-HBs antibody. There are two things that are labeled through this red line. Is there any confusion? You didn't understand? Okay. See, this is S antigen and this is antibody. Surface antigen and surface antibody. This is E antigen and this is anti-HB antibody. Okay. Then about remaining, there was no core antigen in the blood. So there is no graph for core antigen. Core antigen के लिए graph नहीं है, but antibody के लिए graph है, which is denoted in green color. So what is this? This is the graph for anti-HBc antibodies, and here you can see this is IgM and post this there is IgG. So where the IgM stops, IgG has run. Okay? This you understood? Now, if you see anti-HBs antibodies, these are the last antibodies to appear. Which one was the first antibody to appear, antigen to appear? HBs. Which was one the last antibody to appear? Anti-HBs. Okay. Which is the first antibody to appear? First antibody. Anti-HBc with IgM. Very good. This is anti-HBc IgM antibody is the first antibody to appear. Last antibody to appear is anti-HBs. First antigen to appear was HBs antigen. Last antigen to appear was, we are talking about blood serum. First was surface antigen. Second was E, okay, E for infectivity. Okay, this much you understood? So, whenever you see anti-HBs, this means we are talking about recovery or vaccination. Okay? Whenever you see HBe antigen, it means the infection is ongoing. High infectivity. Okay? When anti-HBe antibodies are there, we can say that the person has low infectivity. Okay, it's in the recovery phase. Okay. Now, what is the outcome of hepatitis B virus? Now, after listening to all this, there is a very surprising thing to know that about 90 to 95% of cases recover on their own. Hepatitis B, अगर किसी patient को है, So all we have to do is observe. In 90 to 95% of cases, these people recover on their own. But what is the fate of other? They'll either become carriers or it can lead to sequels. What are these sequels? Cirrhosis and carcinoma. Okay. In remaining cases, it will lead to cirrhosis, then liver failure and hepatocellular carcinoma. Okay. What was the most common cause of hepatocellular carcinoma amongst hepatitis viruses? HCV, okay, hepatitis C virus. Now, I told you about that there is no hepatitis D virus infection without HBV, okay. What is happening? This HDV does not has its antigen, surface antigen. It derives its antigen from hepatitis B virus. So, whenever there is B virus, then only hepatitis D virus can infect a person. So, this infection can take place simultaneously or else hepatitis B virus infection पहले हो गया था और उसके बाद hepatitis D virus infection हुआ. तो जो simultaneous infection होता है उसमें 90% recovery हो जाता है, ठीक है. But जब super infection होता है, then the fate is very bad. Then this person develops chronic hepatitis and cirrhosis and subsequently liver failure. ठीक है? This is what happens. See, here we are talking about the fulminant disease. So here you can see when there is co-infection, like HBV and HDV are infecting together simultaneously at one time. It means that your fulminancy will be there more than HBV singular infection, but not more than super infection. But here in case of super infection, if HBV was already there in the person, HDV got along later, then the fulminancy is much more than the co-infection. Okay. How will you diagnose this? First, you have to figure out. You will see in the exam pattern what kind of antibodies are given to you, what kind of antigens are given to you. If you see that there are two antibodies, two antigens involved, that means it obviously means that it's a co-infection or it means B and D infection. So how will you figure out co-infection or super infection? In case of super infection, you will see this IgG antibodies, anti-HBC core antigen IgG antibodies. What does this mean? IgG means past infection, right? On that, you will get this anti-HDV, IgM and IgG antibodies. So that will denote that it's a super infection. Okay? That was about hepatitis. Any confusion about hepatitis? Okay. Coming to other parasites that can cause infection in the liver, we talked about Entamoeba histolytica in the last class where we discussed about intestinal manifestations, and I had told you that they are able to cause amoebic liver abscess. ठीक है? How do they cause this amoebic liver abscess? You know the life cycle. How do they reach the liver? Through portal vein. Very good. So, this question we have framed. 42-year female was brought to emergency department with complaints of sudden episode of high-grade fever, acute pain and right hypochondria. Had history of dysentery, jaundice for last 2 months. Ultrasound abdomen revealed enlarged liver, hepatomegaly with acute peritonitis. Okay. Pus aspirated from liver was thick chocolate brown in color. What does this mean? Thick chocolate brown. Does it mean anything? It means anchovy sauce appearance. Okay, this is the medical term that we use for the pus that is formed by amoeba. Anchovy sauce appearance. It's an edible thing. You can search it. How does it look? I'll show you. Then microscopy of liver pus revealed necrotic hepatocytes without any pus cells. Okay, this is the question given to you. In this, you can tell that there is jaundice, there is dysentery, there is pain. So it is somehow relating to the liver, right? Then they also told you that there is hepatomegaly. If there is abscess in the liver, will the size remain same? With the inflammation, will the size remain same? No. And there is acute peritonitis. What is peritonitis? Peritoneum. Okay, we'll see that how it happened. So there is this pus that was aspirated from liver and it was thick chocolate brown in color. Okay. Now we understood, we know that this is amoebic liver abscess. Who is causing it? Ant amoeba histolytica is causing it. What is this abscess? This is a space occupying lesion of the liver. Okay. And it is caused by this protozoal parasite, that is Ant amoeba histolytica. How is it moving, this Ant amoeba histolytica? What is this thing here? Is it a cyst or trophozoite? What is this? You can see ingested red blood cell nucleus, pseudopodium दिख रहा है. क्या है ये? Trophozoite है ना? This is trophozoite. Okay. So transmission कैसे हो रहा था? Through contaminated food and water. Okay. Now we saw that there is some lectin antigen that was helping the attachment of this trophozoite in the intestine. This lectin antigen is also capable of inhibiting complement destruction. Blood vessels के अंदर जाके ये इसकी वजह से survive कर पाता है. ठीक है? Blood vessels के अंदर कैसे पहुंचा ये? Because after that attachment, it has these cysteine proteases and hydrolytic enzymes that cause tissue destruction, and through that way it enters the venous system. It survives the blood vessels, it goes to the portal vein, through portal vein it goes to the liver, and there it starts inhabiting. Okay, it attacks the hepatocytes. Other than liver, there are lungs, brain, GUT and spleen where you can find these abscesses, these trophozoites, okay, but most commonly it causes liver abscess. Microscopically, what will you see? This abscess will be comprising of all these walls, okay. This inner central zone will show you necrotic hepatocytes, but इसमें amoeba नहीं होगा. Amoeba will be where? In the outer zone. Why? Because it has to feed on the fresh hepatocytes, good hepatocytes, right? So it's causing necrosis, right? It's causing anoxic necrosis, irreversible necrosis to the hepatocytes, and then it's moving towards the outer healthy zone. So middle zone will have all these RBCs, leukocytes, degenerative hepatocytes, and occasionally amoebic trophozoites. But most commonly, amoebic trophozoites will be seen in the outer zone. This is what the abscess wall comprise of. Okay. What are the walls of abscess? Sleepyhead? Loudly. What does inner have? ठीक है. I told you about anchovy sauce pus. This is how it looks like. Okay. This is anchovy sauce pus. Chocolate. Looks like hot chocolate almost. Melted chocolate. Okay. So, whenever such kind of hey, don't laugh. This kind of sample is accepted in the laboratories, we can suspect that it's a amoebic liver abscess. Okay. See, this is the abscess here. From this abscess, we took out this thing. Okay. This is the liver specimen. Now, we talked about, यहाँ पे लिखा है ना, it grows in the various directions in liver, discharging the contents into neighboring organs. What are the neighboring organs? Neighboring organs could be the nearest organ, could be the wall of, could be the skin near the liver, which is covering that part of the liver, right? So, granuloma cutis, then pleura, granuloma pleuritis, pericarditis. Also, what we saw in our case, peritonitis, right? Okay. So these are all the complications of amoebic liver abscess. What else you can do, you know, but these are the main important things that you have to remember. This pathognomic thing, amoebic anchovy sauce appearance in the liver abscess. Okay. Next case. What is next case? 24-year-old woman presented with complaints of pain and right hypochondrium. What is right hypochondrium? किसको नहीं पता what is right hypochondrium? Okay. ठीक है. तुम्हें पता है? अभी पता चला? नहीं. What is left hypochondrium? Okay. What else is there in your? Okay. क्या हुआ यहाँ पे? What happened here? Cyst हुआ. फिर मैं सो गया, फिर मैं उठा तो सर्जरी हो चुका था, मुझे पता ही नहीं क्या हुआ. Right? This cyst was surgically removed. Okay. Can you see the cyst? What do you think this is? What is this? This is larva. Okay. This what do we call this thing? It's a hydatid cyst. Hydatid is a fluid-filled cyst that is caused by Echinococcus granulosus. Okay. It is also known as dog tapeworm because man is accidental host. इसका जो डेफिनेट होस्ट है वो मैन के अलावा, मैन के पहले डॉग होता है. ठीक है. मैन के अंदर कैसे आता है? बिकॉज मैन unintentionally, accidentally consumes food or water contaminated with dog feces. Okay? एग कहाँ जाएगा? फीशीज में जाएगा. वहां से जो एग रहेगा वो इंसान के खाने के द्वारा या पानी के द्वारा इंसान के अंदर चला जाएगा. तो इसका जो इन्फेक्शन है डॉग टेपवर्म, मैन के अंदर एक्सीडेंटली ये Echinococcus granulosus hydatid cyst बनाता है. ठीक है. इसके 3 फॉर्म्स है. व्हाट आर द फॉर्म्स? You guys know about cystode, right? I taught you about the cystode. What is cystode? It's a tapeworm, tape-like, segmented tape-like structure worm. So this worm actually looks like this. Do you remember from Taenia saginata and Solium, we talked about Rustulum. There were 2 rows of hooklets that were present in which tapeworm? हाँ, सही बोल रही हो. Taenia saginata में नहीं था, Solium में था. Okay, ठीक है. Then these suckers were present in both. Okay. Then we saw that there was neck, all these segments were there. Then there were gravid proglottids were there. We call them proglottids. Okay. This tapeworm actually grows until only some millimeters. That is why it is very small. Okay. So what you can see here, you can see the adult form which is shown here. You can see the cyst larva form, and then there is egg form. ठीक है. But this larva form is growing because it's inside the human host and it is fluid filled. Okay, that's why it's growing such a bigger in number. ठीक है. What is the life cycle? It is supposed to infect the sheeps. Okay. Why sheeps and why dogs involved here? Because dogs can consume on the sheep intestines. है ना? They can attack the sheep and they can eat the sheep meat. So this man is accidental host here. After it has acquired the dog feces through food, this hatches out in the intestine. It penetrates this intestine, goes into the circulation, and from circulation goes to the liver. In there it starts developing the hydatid cysts. Okay, but same thing is happening in the dog, but in the dogs, this, where is it coming from? This infection? Dog is consuming on feces? No. Dog is consuming on what? Sheep. Okay, the sheep viscera it is eating, which is already infected with the Echinococcus. That's how it is related. Okay. और sheep के अंदर कहाँ से गया ये? because sheep is grazing on grass. ठीक है? Understood? किसको नहीं समझा? तो man dead end क्यों हो गया ये बताओ? Why is the man dead end host? Why is man not giving infection to anything out of this? Man की वजह से infection क्यों नहीं फैल रहा है? शीप या डॉग में से कोई भी मैन फिशीज खाता है क्या? कौन खाता है? पिग खाता है ना, तो पिग यहाँ पे कहीं इन्वॉल्व नहीं है ना? Am I complicating it? I'm just telling you that you understand this thing. Man has become a dead end host because man species इनमें से दो animals में से कोई नहीं खा रहा है. Understood? ठीक है? ठीक है? Then the cyst wall that you have seen before, it has pericyst, ectocyst and endocyst. Okay. In this endocyst, you will see the brood capsules. Brood capsules matlab their upcoming, the protoscolysis, future heads of this tapeworm. Okay. They will, out of these brood capsules, they will appear as worms. Okay. So this is basically a larva. This hydatid fluid cyst is a larva. It is antigenic and toxic and anaphylactic. So, whenever you are dealing with this hydatid cyst during surgery, you have to make sure that you pull out the entire cyst from the liver. If this fluid happened to be ruptured inside the human body, the person might go into the anaphylaxis reaction. Okay? You know, everybody knows what is anaphylaxis, right? Okay, and this term called hydatid sand, जिसमें ये brood protocolysis जो होते हैं, they break off and they get deposited at the hydatid cyst का bottom. Okay, just remember that it is hydatid sand. Now this hydatid cyst may undergo spontaneous resolution because it undergoes certain stages during its development. So sometimes they are completely calcified. Okay. But if they rupture, they might lead to secondary cyst formation, they might lead to anaphylaxis reaction, they might give place to the secondary bacterial infections also, okay, inside the liver. This is how the cyst look like. This is the pericyst, ectocyst and endocyst. Within endocyst, you can see these brood capsules, and these are the protoscolysis that fell off from these brood capsules, and they are appearing as hydatid sand in the bottom of this cyst. Okay, and these are the protoscolysis that may become worm later. This is another specimen that is showing you the hydatid cyst. This is pericyst. This is ectocyst and endocyst, and these are the brood capsules. Now, in radiology, you have to remember this classification based on the USG finding. Okay, so they are based on what? Cystic lesion. That is, out of these 4 are the active stages from CL to CE3. The first one is the cystic lesion, but it has no visible cyst wall. Just remember, this is important for the treatment. Okay, it has no visible cyst wall. CE1 has a visible cyst wall and internal echos. It is known as a snowflake sign. Okay. Then CE2, it has visible cyst wall and internal septations. So we call it honeycomb appearance. Then there is CE3, which is a transitional state. So where these detached membranes, you know, they collapse and they look like a water lily sign. And last 2 stages, CE4 and CE5, they are inactive stages in which the cyst is already undergoing calcification. Okay, this is how it look like in USG. What is this? This is ultrasound. Can you see this internal septations a lot? This is honeycomb appearance. Okay, this is drooping lily sign. This is heterogeneous mass. This is already calcified cyst. Now, out of these cysts, there is something called as pair treatment. What is pair? puncture, aspiration, injection, re-aspiration. What are we doing here? We are puncturing this cyst. We are taking out the fluid whichever there is inside because it is anaphylactic. We are injecting this with the colicidal agents which will kill these brood capsules that are with the hypertonic saline. Hypertonic means 9% NaCl, okay, cetrimide or ethanol. We are giving this colicidal agents and then we are re-aspirating it after 5 minutes. Okay, this we are doing under USG guidance. Now you tell me, if you give this colicidal agents or you puncture this, will this fluid spread in all the cyst? No, because this has septations. So in CE2 case, we do not give this. Okay, we do not perform pair treatment. Also in inactive stages, CE4 and CE5, we do not perform pair treatment. Where are we performing it? CE1 and drooping lily sign. Okay? You understood why we are not performing pair in certain cases and why in certain cases? Okay. Now there is something called as alveolar echinococosis. It is most commonly known to infect lungs. Okay? Alveoli. Other than that, there are some trematodes that infect the liver. What are trematodes? How do they look like? Leaf-like. Okay? Leaf-like structures. They are also known as liver flukes. You have heard about fasciola buscae in last class. We'll discuss about fasciola hepatica and fasciola buscae today, and clonorchis and opisthorchis. Out of this, fasciola infects the liver and bile duct. Clonorchis and opisthorchis, they infect bile duct only. Okay. You have to remember that they have liver flukes, they have 3 hosts. The humans are the definitive host. Other animals that can get infected are dogs, sheep and cats. Okay. Then over here amongst the intermediate hosts, there are 2 intermediate hosts. Uska pehla jo intermediate host hota hai snail. And the other second intermediate host hota hai aquatic plants ya fir crayfish. Okay, crayfish. How does the transmission occur? It occurs through ingestion of second intermediate host carrying the Metacercaria form of this. Okay, and the same as the previous, they will penetrate intestinal wall and migrate to their habitat, which is liver or bile duct. If it is inhabiting bile duct, what will it cause? Cholestasis, cholangitis, or given for that matter, gallbladder carcinoma. Okay? What is the diagnostic form? Diagnostic form is egg. This is the egg of Fasciolopsis buscae. You can see the segmented, these segmented meres. Okay? And this is for Clonorchis sinensis, operculum, and this knob-like structure. This is also passed in stool sample. Okay? This was about the trematodes infecting hepatobiliary system.